Hello and welcome to Mr. Stitch Films podcast Creepy Corner. I'm your host, Anthony M. Winson. Each episode we'll be diving into creepy subjects, whether that be discussing horror films, ghost stories, urban legends, etc. This will be our creepy corner of the internet for an hour. Each episode will hopefully have a special guest to help me discuss these weird and wonderful topics. And today's co-host is someone I've known for all 35 years of my life. Craig, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maury Rose, and if you like fruit wine as much as I do... No, hi, I'm Craig, and I am Anthony's older brother. Shall I say any more than that?
So, for anyone that is listening, this is two separate people.
Yes, we are not the same, because when we worked together many years ago in the call centre industry, nobody could ever tell us apart.
Everyone used to say coming up the stairs, they'd have to wait for the door to open before they'd know whether or not it was me or you.
Yes, but we are two very different people.
Yes, I am not just talking to myself. I do have a brother and we sound very much alike. So, on today's podcast for Creepy Corner, I invited my older brother on because we thought we would discuss one of his favourite horror movies of all time, which is...
Should I tell you? I don't know. It is The Exorcist. 1973, Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, Exorcist.
Absolutely. So, I thought I would give a quick little introduction of The Exorcist. In the heart of Georgetown, a chilling presence has taken hold when a young girl becomes possessed by an ancient evil. Her mother seeks the help of two priests. As they confront the forces of darkness, a battle for the girl's soul ensues, plunging them into a terrifying struggle between faith and malevolence. Starring Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, and Jason Miller.
And Max von Sydow.
Hey, well done.
There you go.
I didn't know where to start with the starring, so I thought I'd go with like the three main people. But well done, look at you.
I know. I am terrible with names, so I did have to look them up this afternoon just so it was fresh in my head. So if I stumble later on, it's just because I'm really bad with names.
Yeah, so did I. I wrote that this afternoon while looking up names. I hope everyone enjoyed that little creepy introduction though. You know, I tried my best malevolent voice. So Craig, why don't you say a little bit about when you first discovered The Exorcist?
I was still not 100% sure on this. I was trying to think about it the other day because it's just always been something that I was fascinated with for as long as I can remember. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was... when I was at school, just looking into like video nasties, kind of like the big band that they did, because Evil Dead was one of them, which I saw as a really young kid back, when you couldn't get it. So it was like an old pirate version, which the quality, I know, pirate. And if most kids nowadays even know what there's a pirate video, not Miyarty's on the sea, but a pirate is in like, someone's recorded it. And yeah, because Evil Dead, you couldn't get it in the UK. It was banned, along with like Driller Killer and The Burning and stuff like that. So I
Spit on Your Grave.
The Spit on Your Grave, yeah. So I don't know I just know about it because it was amongst them that it was in my head. But I just remember I knew the story was about a young girl who was possessed by a demon, and it was supposed to be really scary and just absolutely terrifying. And I remember just trying to get as much information about it as I could.
Forbidden fruit as well.
Yeah, because you couldn't get it anywhere. You couldn't see it. And it's that thing that it's just, I think I wanted it more and more because you couldn't get it. Like the Evil Dead was fine. I knew I could get that. Someone I knew had a pirate copy of it. So I was like, yeah, that one I can get. But The Exorcist, nobody I knew had it. It wasn't available anywhere. It's not like now where if something's banned, you can normally find it on the internet.
Yeah.
This is, I was born in 83, so this would be the early 90s. Yeah. And it's like the internet didn't really exist in the way it does today. So you couldn't just log on and find something. No. I remember going to like Long Eaton Library to find movie books to see if I could find anything about it. And I remember asking them because I knew it was based on a book. And I remember going into Long Eaton Library and I must have been 11 or 12. and asking one of the women that worked there, like, if they had this book. And I remember going, like, away, tapping on this really old computer that was like, yeah, black screen, like, just red text, and her searching for it. And they did have one copy of it that was checked out in the early 80s and never returned. So she was like, I don't think we're getting that back. And I was like, no.
They've got a very late overdue fee.
I'd hate to see that person's late fee.
Especially now, because Longington Library still exists.
I know, which I find really weird that it still exists, and I spent so many hours there, like, as a kid.
I remember. Well, I remember the first time I heard about it, I was very young, and obviously watching horror films with you, and I was always looking for
I did introduce him to horror films. He was really young. And
4.
Yeah, really, really young. And Mum and Dad were out, and I was putting on scary films, and he was watching them with me. And I was like, don't tell Mum and Dad that I've let you watch this. And I can't remember. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that.
Nightmare on Elm Street and Child's Play were like my first introduction to horror.
Which... naughty big brother.
Best big brother.
Should not have been introducing these to a kid and possibly traumatizing him for life.
Oh, I remember sometimes being really traumatized from films, definitely. But I remember I was looking for like the next kind of scary thing, and was in the living room, and Dad was there. And I think Dad was like, there's only one film in this house that you will never watch and I will not allow. And I was like, what film? What film? And he wouldn't tell me. And I was like, I want to know. And I think eventually it was like, it's a really horrible film. It's called The Exorcist. You are never allowed to watch it. And...
I mean, it's putting temptation right there, isn't it? The minute someone tells you can't watch something, it instantly makes you like, right, okay, well, I'm doing that.
Yeah, I remember I was about 7. I would have been 7 because we were on holiday with our older sister, Michelle. And I had gone to bed and there was a Channel 4 documentary about The Exorcist.
I'll come to that in a bit, yeah.
This is just glossing over. We'll come to that later. But I remember hearing certain parts of it. And then next day, just like quoting "Mother, Mother," while being hit over the head in a sleeping bag. But then later on, I knew that you had a copy of it on VHS, and I remember begging Mom, going, "Mom, can I watch it? Can I watch it?" No, your dad will kill me if he knows that you've watched this film. I was like, "Please, Mom, if it gets too scary, I will turn it off. I promise I won't say anything." So Mum was just like, don't tell your dad. So I snuck in, got this VHS copy, and I watched it. And then a few years later, I think it came on Sky TV, and I said to Dad, oh, can you record it for me? He's like, no, I told you you're not allowed to watch this film. And I was like, I've already seen it. He's like, well, who told you you could watch it? And I'm like, nobody. And Mum's there like twiddling her thumbs like, not me, definitely not me.
That awkward moment, wasn't me.
But I think before I even saw that, I think one of my other first introductions was when you came home and I was eating something. You was like, I've got this film and it's so scary. You don't want to be eating while you're watching it. And it was The Exorcist 2. So the first one I saw was The Exorcist 2.
Same as me. I saw The Exorcist because it was the only one you could get hold of. And I got it from Long Eaton Market stall.
Yeah.
They had a copy of it. And it was like, the people that are fans of Exorcist like do not like The Exorcist 2 because it wasn't the film that it should have started out to be.
Got some notes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, jumping the gun a bit. But yes, I remember like seeing that and buying it because it was the only way I could see anything to do with it was to start with The Exorcist 2. So yeah, that I did see first.
And I remember thinking how weird it was watching The Exorcist 2 going, this is just like that film, like that funny film. What's it called? You were like, Repossessed. And I was like, why is it so much like it? You're like, wow, funny story. That's a spoof of the first one.
Repossessed. Leslie Nielsen and Linda Blair again.
I mean, give her due, like the fact that she took the piss out of herself.
Which I was like, yeah, I mean, not many actors would do that for something that was so serious as The Exorcist was, to kind of come back and do basically a piss take version. I mean, with Leslie Nielsen, there's all people like Naked Gun and Police Squad and whatnot. But again, I've not seen that film in years, so I don't know if it would still hold up today, but I remember finding it hilarious when I was a kid.
It's so funny. Like me and Lewis watched it not that long ago, and it is still so funny.
Well, yeah, if you've never heard of it, look it up. Repossessed. I'm sure it was like a made-for-TV, like NBC or something like that in America.
And if you've not seen it, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, well, exactly. Pause this, go away, watch it, and come back afterwards. You'll thank us because it's just really funny.
It really is. Because the two people in it, I think, are kind of like a spoof of Ed and Lorraine
Warren,
as
yeah.
well, aren't they, really? And that went over my head until I was much older.
There's a bit in it that I always used to quote from Repossessed, that Linda Blair, when she first meets Leslie Nielsen as the priest when he comes in, and she's like, "Hi, I'm Barbara Walters, and this is 2020." And the way she said it was so funny that I used to quote it all the time. But being in the UK, I had no idea what 2020 was on Barbara Walters, I just found it hilarious, and I used to quote it all the time.
Yeah, it was such a good film. So yeah, so I remember watching Heretic, and then thinking how much it was, and then like Repossessed, and then later on must have been, God knows, years later that I finally got to see the original Exorcist.
A long time.
Yeah, and the funny thing was as well, I remember watching it and not really phasing me that much because, you know, I think the weird thing is about the original is, and I've noted this down, is how younger audiences don't seem to understand the impact of it. And so many people, I remember being at school going, "Oh, I watched it and I laughed my head off at it." And I think it takes you to mature a bit to actually fully grasp the gravity of the film and how shocking it is.
Which you and Sarah referenced that in the first podcast that you did, when you were saying that, like, as a kid, you're like, oh, like more body counts, more pain, more, killings and stabbings and whatnot. But then as an adult, you look at it completely different because you're like, I know how much that would hurt, like, to do that. So if that happened to you, so you kind of look at things with a whole different view than when you are younger. And I think this is one of those films that's definitely true of that. I remember people saying the same thing when it got re-released for like the 25th anniversary kind of thing, when it came back to the cinema as like the version you've never seen when it got a cinema release. And I remember people at school saying like, "Oh, I went to see that last night, and I don't get what it was about. Like, I laughed at it. It was stupid. Like, I don't understand." And I think a lot of it is we've become desensitized to stuff as well. When you think like Scream and Saw and Hostel that's kind of out nowadays, that you have to kind of look at it from a different viewpoint. They're like, okay, this is 1973. Films were not the same back then. You didn't get the same level of like graphic violence and things that you get now.
And I think as a kid as well, you don't understand how horrific this is happening to another child.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realise how horrible that is, that a child is going through this, because you're a child yourself, so you're like, nah, you just don't really understand it.
Yeah.
I remember Dad saying that he dragged Mum twice to see it, and Mum hated it both times.
I was like, what kind of date is that? I'm like, can you imagine, like, 1973, it's opened at the cinema, there's queues around the block, it's in the height where people are being sick and passing out and running out of the cinema and stuff, and he's like, right, come on, date night, now I'm going to take you. So she goes to watch it, hates it, finds it traumatizing, and then he's like, yeah, guess date night again, I'm going to take you back to this horrible thing.
Wasn't enough the first time.
I'm like, I'm surprised she stuck with him after that. I'd be like, right, you are not the person for me. Goodbye.
Two films stand out as two films that I would love to have experienced in the heyday, and that would have been The Exorcist and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just because of how horrendous those films were. And
that was another band, wasn't it, in the UK, Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I mean, the people's reactions, because these films were nothing that would ever been seen before.
They were very much like first ones of their kind.
Yeah. So, and those films, I would love to have experienced those for the first time back when it was, because
I've said that with The Exorcist. I'd love to have gone back and say, growing up in that time, this thing coming out and experiencing it like everybody else did at that time, to see like what your reaction would be to it.
I wonder how different it was, the reaction of, say, the UK to America, because America is a lot more God-fearing than the UK.
Also, I think Americans are a lot more dramatic than the UK are. We're very reserved as people, and I remember, just as an example, when I went to America, I went to see Love Actually in the cinema there. And have you seen Love Actually? And it's the scene where Hugh Grant is having a go at the American president, and basically he's not like being rude, but he's basically saying like, we're going to stand up to you and we're not going to put up with this anymore. And in America, when that happened in the cinema, because it was kind of like the whole Tony Blair, George Bush like mirror of their relationship at the time. And when I was in America and I saw it in the cinema, the people in the cinema were like, yes, at the screen, like clapping and cheering and like, whoa. And I remember I was kind of sat there at the time like, what are you people doing? It's the cinema. You sit quietly and you watch the film. You laugh if something's funny, but you don't stand up and, and cheer and shout and at the screen and things. I'm like, this isn't what you do. And I saw the film again in the UK, completely different reaction, that everyone was just kind of sat and just enjoyed the film.
It's almost like it's a pantomime.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas it's not like that at all in the cinema. I mean, people clap at the end of films in the US and things like that. And I mean, like I said, they are a lot more God-fearing in America. Like, they are a lot more by the Bible. Whereas the UK, I mean,
so be careful, we'll get onto politics at the minute because of what's going on at the moment with the whole women's rights thing. But yeah, religion serves such a massive thing in. I mean, it's a thing in
the trust and stuff.
It's on the money, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like we have religion in the UK, but I always feel like it's not the same as it is in America. Religion seems to dictate so much.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to have seen the differences between the cinema experiences of the UK versus the America, because I think there would be two very different things.
Yeah, the UK in the 70s probably would have been a bit more pompous about it, like, oh, this is far too ghastly.
Yeah, oh God, this is terrible. Jeeves, bring round the car. We're going home. We're not watching this. Oh God, no, terrible. Sheila, cover your eyes. You don't need to see this.
Whereas in the US, it would have been, oh my God, we're all getting possessed.
Yeah, literally, like running into the nearest church, which is what people did, didn't they? Like clamouring for exorcism and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very odd. But should I go back to kind of like how I kind of my fascinations intensified?
Absolutely.
So, couldn't get hold of a copy of it, was still obsessed, and then I was 15 and I was away on holiday with Michelle.
Okay.
When the documentary aired on the BBC, 25 Years, Fear of God, Making of the Exorcist.
Which I kind of overheard.
Yeah, you were sent to bed because you were very young. So I'm sure I was about 15 at the time when it came out.
Well, it would have been 98.
Was it 98?
Possibly, yeah, because nephew was born
15.
in 97 and we went on holiday with him when he was a baby.
Yeah, so I was 15 and I knew it was coming. I'd seen it back then when you get the Sunday newspaper, which has the TV guide for the week, and there was an article that this thing was coming because it was really kind of like, oh my God, they're going to show scenes of The Exorcist on TV. It was a massive deal. And I remember being so excited because I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to get to see scenes from the film. Because up until that point, I'd only seen Exorcist 2, The Heretic. And that has bits of the Linda Blair character. I don't know if it is Linda Blair that dresses up as Reagan for the second one.
No, apparently it's a Thunderball.
Yeah, I did wonder that. But you see glimpses of her as Reagan being possessed in the second one. And up until that point, that's all I'd seen kind of about it. So it was like, oh my God, we're actually going to see scenes of it. So seeing that, and that was basically just kicked my thing into overdrive because it's such a good documentary. They did an amazing job on it. And then once that had gone, that drove me even more. And it was my sister's boyfriend at the time, Rob, who managed to get hold of a copy. I don't know how he did it or who he got it from, but he was the one that got a pirate copy for me, lent it to me, and that was when I finally got to see it.
Wow.
And I remember it was such a big thing. It was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to get to see this thing that I've been obsessed with for years. And it was like the Holy Grail. Like, I've got my hands on it. I can watch it. And I remember watching it and it finished. And I thought, what was that?
I was going to say, after all that,
it was so anticlimactic for me because I think in my head, because I did say the Fear of God documentary, especially when it was showing you like footage of people in the cinema in America, like having this massive reaction to it and them talking about like how bad it was. And in the documentary, they had the interview with the BBFC guy at the time that he was the one that was stopping the release of it. And he was talking about like how terrifying it was and how powerful it was. And I went in, I think, with this such unrealistic expectation that this film was going to blow my world apart. And I watched it and I remember just thinking, what was that? Is that it? Yeah, it was so sad because it just didn't live up to what I thought it was going to be. But again, at the time, I was 15.
Yeah.
So I think age had a lot to do with it. So I remember I took a copy of it So I gave him the VHS back, so I had one that I could hold on
You
to.
mean to tell me you pirated a pirate?
Absolutely not. No, I never would do that. If the BBC had released it, I would have bought it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I couldn't. So it was the only way I could have it. So yeah, I kept it, and then it was weeks, I think, before I actually watched it again. And then when I watched it again, because I didn't have this big expectation, this big hype for it, I watched it as sort of like, okay, this is just a film. It's not this horrendously terrifying, shocking, is going to destroy my life film. It's just a movie. I've seen it already.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was when my appreciation started to improve for it. And then I was like, okay, actually, this is a good film. Like, it has this it's a very slow burner, and then it kind of goes, and then these horrific things happen and things like that, and obviously what it is. And yeah, then I was kind of like, okay, this is actually a really good film. For then, it's just forever been this film that I've absolutely loved.
So I think I felt very much the same kind of way when I watched it, not really understanding it for the first viewing, because like you said, it was built up and built up. Dad said I couldn't watch it, everyone, you know, it was this horrible film, and then finally watched it, and I think I watched it in 2 parts, I think I got bored. But then obviously I went back to it, and even now if I catch it on TV or something like that, or it's on demand and I start to watch it, the thing that I like about it, that I feel makes it stand out from other films, is how it's not just immediately a horror film.
Yeah.
The dynamic between Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair as mother and daughter, and like the loving dynamic of them, and her trying to have her life as an actress during her day job, and like looking after Reagan. And then when obviously everything starts to happen, it goes through a medical screening.
And I think that I love that they added more of that in the version you've never seen that they released. They added more of the medical experiments into it, which when you see them, they're horrible. They're so like, they're so like, oh my, like say, as an adult, you look at it a completely different way. When you've been to the doctors and you've had tests, you know how much things hurt now. And she's having these horrible things done to her. And I think those scenes add a whole other level to the film and just really ground it in realism. It's not, I think William Friedkin said it in the documentary, it's not Frankenstein or Dracula in a castle or something like that. These are very ordinary people in an ordinary house in an ordinary town, and then these things start to happen. And I think the medical part of it really does add this realism to it. It's so like, well, if your kid started behaving this way, or this was happening, you would take them to a doctor. And if the doctor says you need these tests, you'll be like, okay, we'll have these tests because it's what the doctor's telling me. And I think it really adds to it and grounds it.
And it's not until it defies logic for her that she decides, okay, I need to look into other avenues as to what is going on with my daughter. And she plays that so well.
She does. Ellen Burstyn does so well on it. And I mean, the wanted Shirley MacLaine was the original one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, William Peter Blatty wanted Shirley MacLaine from Poseidon Adventure for the role of Chris MacNeil. But in the end, William Friedkin went with Ellen Burstyn as well.
I think that was a very good decision to make. I couldn't imagine anybody else playing that role.
I can't, because she does it so well. She does just the maternal mum section of it is so good, and then just watching her world just sort of crumble and fall apart, and you know, and then when she goes to see Damien Karras when she's on the bridge and she thinks it's a fan that's trying to talk to her, and it's like, are you Chris MacNeil? And you just the break that's in her voice when she's in the sunglasses and just like, just please leave me alone. And you feel for her. You're like, this is a woman who is breaking and just doesn't know what to do. And she plays it so well. She really does.
I mean, I wonder how it would have been filming it, because I know that she got injured quite
they tormented that poor woman.
Did she break her coccyx or something?
They bruised her back really badly when she gets hit, when the doctor comes to see her and Reagan like backhands her across the room.
I think she broke her, is it called your coccyx at the bottom of your back?
It's just above your butt.
I think it's when they pulled her back from I think after Linda Blair slaps and yank her back, I think she screams as she hits the floor.
Yeah.
And I think she broke her coccyx.
Because I know in the Fear of God, she says if you look as she hits the floor, you can see her reach for her back.
Yeah.
And it's because she hit it with such force that it hurt that much that instinctively she just goes for it. And then someone William Friedkin signaled to the cameraman to like zoom down on her.
She's in pain.
Yeah, she's in pain. Get it. It's real. Go for it. And she was saying how angry she got because they risked her health to get this particular shot. But he did crazy things like that all the time on the set, like firing guns near people to make them jump.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit where Damien Karras is listening to the cassette and then his phone rings and he jumps and freaking fires a gun at the side of his head to make him jump. Like, could you imagine a director doing that nowadays?
You hear about this so much, though, back in the day with filmmaking, that they risked so many actors' lives to get a shot.
And you got to think, like, did they not have unions or anything where you could pick the phone and be like, they are tormenting me here?
I think you were pretty much, once you signed on, you were screwed.
Like Stanley Kubrick with Shelley Duvall on The Shining. That poor woman.
I can't even watch that film because of what he did to her.
I'm not a fan of the film anyway. No. TV series for me with Rebecca De Mornay is so much better.
It is.
Because Jack Nicholson was so miscast for that film. Yeah. Because
even Stephen King said he didn't like Jack Nicholson in the role. He said he overplayed it.
Yeah, he starts out crazy.
People are going to switch off now because slating The Shining is like the biggest no-no apparently, because I did it. I said I preferred the TV miniseries on Facebook a few weeks ago, and the amount of people that are like laughing at me and calling me out, and I'm like, you know what, it is what it is. But
no, even if the person that created this world and this story is standing there and saying this is not good, then I feel I'm okay to say, no, Stephen, I agree. This film was not good. I
think the fact of the matter that he treated Shelley Duvall, Stanley Kubrick, so awfully, the fact that she had to be sectioned.
Yeah.
And even now,
mental health is terrible. And you've got to think, like, how far does that date back to what he did to her?
She said it's because of how he treated her. Because there was an interview that I saw with Grim Collectors, their interview Shelley Duvall, and she even says, like, it all goes back to Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but going back, sidetrack, because we're talking about how people got away with stuff back in the day. But yeah, I mean, they had to freeze the set and things, didn't they, to get like the.
It's like, could you imagine that? Like now, you just draw it in digitally.
No, I know exactly how that feels like, because when I was filming Children of Darkwood House, it was so cold in that house you could see your breath. Like you can see the actor's breath. So I know
suffered for your art.
We did. I got ill from that shoot, but yeah, I know exactly how it feels to be on a set that cold.
Yeah. Nowadays, you would never do that because it would cost so much. But they brought in air conditioning units, like shut the set down, froze it overnight, so you could get a couple of hours filming before the lights heated it up again. Yeah. But I remember poor Linda Blair, who was there in a nightgown and nothing else. Thank God she had covers on that bed, but her top half, she's in a nightgown. Yeah. Who's saying how freezing cold it was.
Did the set catch fire?
Yeah, they did. That was one thing I was going to go on to. But yeah, there were so many things that happened on that film, but one of them was a set burnt down. Yeah. Which they could never find a reason for, which is, it becomes that thing I was going to mention, that although I've watched them, I don't believe the film is evil. Like people are like, no, this film contains like the devil's DNA and the actual film elements of it, and I'm like, I don't think that at all. But yeah, they were saying that, like, so many weird things happened, but yeah, one of them was a fire that they were never able to trace. Jack McGowan, who's in the film, who plays the director of the film that Chris McNeil is making, he died before the film actually came out.
Right.
He never actually got to see like the finished version of it.
Because he dies in the film, doesn't he?
Yes. Yeah. He died. Reagan throws him out the window, but he actually did die.
Yeah. Not from the stunt. Just to clarify, if you've not seen the film, he didn't die from the stunt.
Yeah, Jack McGowan died. Max von Sydow, the Father Merrin priest, his brother died while they were making the film. There was a cameraman who, like, him and his wife had a baby. The baby died. There was someone that used to refrigerate the set that died. There was, like, a security. young security guard that used to like patrol the sets at night. He died. They were saying like there was just really weird things like that happened that they just could never explain.
Was there a car accident?
I don't know. I can't remember anything about a car accident.
I felt like I heard something about someone got, like, as the Americans call, T-boned. Is that right? You know?
Oh, rear-ended?
No, where they like drive to the side of you.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't know. That might have been another film, because obviously The Omen as well was plagued with so many disasters.
Well, you got to wonder. You're making films about the devil.
Well, this is what everyone says, but then how you know? I bet you if you probably looked into other films that aren't about the devil, there probably is a lot of accidents that happen. They just don't talk about them.
That's what Max von Sydow was said in the BBC documentary that films don't normally shoot for as long as The Exorcist went on for. The Exorcist went on for, I think it was like over a year they were filming it for. It was a long time.
Right.
And it was like, if anything goes on for a prolonged period of time, things will happen. Yeah. People will have accidents, people will die. It's part of life. Yeah. It's like, it's just so happened that we were making this film at the time when these things occurred. So it's like, is it sinister and supernatural, or is it just life? And it just happened to occur at the same time. We will never know.
I mean, this is true. This is true.
But yeah, no. The Jason Miller, who plays Damien Karras, that was in it, said that when he was filming, there was a priest that came and gave him like a talisman that was basically to protect him from the devil, because there was this rumor that if you ever do anything to kind of expose the devil, or like talk about him, or like bring him to light as like the person he is, then the devil will seek you out and kill you. Right. So it was like, take this talisman. He does mention what it was. I can't remember. It was a piece of jewelry. But it was like, take this. This will protect you and this will keep you safe.
Okay. So, I mean, it must have had a profound influence on you watching it though, because you to this day will not play with a Ouija board.
No, I will not. And my brother here played with one recently and asked me if I wanted to come, and I was like, hell no. Did we learn nothing from The Exorcist that you do not play with Ouija boards?
Ouija boards were invented by the same person that created Monopoly.
Yeah, which is just weird, isn't it? Hasbro.
Yeah, and Ouija board outsells Monopoly, I think, every year.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Which is crazy. And I mean, I've done many Ouija boards and I've never had anything happen with them.
That he knows of.
This is true. I mean, recently there's been very strange things happening in this house.
And I'm sat here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If anything follows me home, I'm going to sue you.
The podcast was not even worth it for those 3 views.
But no, I will never, ever touch a Ouija board. I don't like it. It just, the thought is terrifying.
But saying that, like, Sarah Wynne Claudius has said that she promised a relative of hers before they died that she'd never play with a Ouija board, and to this day she never will.
No. It's not something I would do. And I say, The Exorcist has a lot to do with that, because that's just rooted me in this fear now that, no, you play with these things, bad things happen. And I was just like, no, I will not do it. So sorry if I've got any relatives out there that are trying to reach me with urgent messages. Maybe
I want
even
to tell you where the expensive jewellery is.
Yes, or lottery numbers or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm never going to get that message because I refuse to pick one up. It's not going to happen. Yeah, go through Anthony instead. You can talk to him. So, honestly. But yes, so that's kind of my thing of watching the film.
How long before you read the book?
I read the book after the BBC documentary.
So before the film?
Yeah, before the film. And I bought it from W.H. Smith's.
That's still going. I don't see how, but they are still going.
I have no idea how W.H. Smith's is still going. For anyone in America, W.H. Smith's is a bookshop, kind of like Barnes & Noble.
Do they have Waterstones in America?
I don't know. But yeah,
it's just they used to just cater for books, but now they kind of like have their fingers in many pies to try and stay alive.
They're even like part of the post office now. Yeah, post office in them to try and get some money. Because I mean, with Amazon, who's buying books from the high street when you can get them so much cheaper? But you know, Amazon is both a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
But yes, I bought it from there, and it had a acid green cover.
Oh. And
it had a crucifix on it, and the crucifix was yellow. And they had like the wording of The Exorcist.
Do you still have it?
Yes, I've still got it.
Have you? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
I've got a copy up there on my bookshelf.
And I somewhere have an original first edition of the book that has a really weird cover of like, it almost looks like a baby or something that's on the cover of it. It's really odd.
Oh, okay.
But I got that from, I think it was eBay.
Grace just looking up. If you hear tapping, it's just Grace's keyboard.
It's my keyboard.
So I will insert a picture of the videos. Oh, yes. Do you know what? I have seen that before, yes.
I've no idea what it is. It's just some weird, creepy thing, but I have that as an original book as well.
Okay.
Yes, I do still have them. And I've read the book many times, and I still think it's a good book.
So I've read the book. I think I've only read the book once, so I can't remember how different it is to the film.
It's pretty much the same, because...
They both worked very closely, didn't
Yeah,
they?
because William Peter Blatty originally did a screenplay for it, which he gave to William Friedkin. And Friedkin basically was like, it's not very good. It was a lot of sort of like symbolism and things like that. And he was like, we don't need this. So William Friedkin literally got a copy of the book and used to mark passages in it, would highlight sections and be like, right, we're going to film this chunk. So they literally took stuff straight from the book, and it was most of it that was in it. I don't remember much about what didn't make, especially now the film's been redone so many times and they've re-added in like cut material and stuff like that. That pretty much what you're seeing, I think, is a really good replica of the book. It's pretty much like for like.
Yeah, because I remember when you watched it on the sleepover with Louise, and that would have been 2009, and it was a version, it's a new version that you'd not seen, and you were saying, like, not seen that before.
Yeah.
That's been digitally enhanced, and that's been changed slightly.
Yeah, they did the version you've never seen, which added in, like, the spider walk sequence down the stairs.
The famous spider walk.
It was like, oh my God, people talked about that for years. And some more medical stuff, and then it kind of reinserted the conversation between the two priests on the stairs, like halfway through The Exorcist. It put all that back, and then it got like another version where they went back and added in digital effects.
Yeah.
So at certain points in the film, you can see like the demon's face appears in odd areas.
Yeah.
Which was an odd thing for them to put in. I'm still not quite sure why they did that. I mean, I don't hate it, but it was one of the things I was like, I don't know if it necessarily needed it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, I think, when people are looking for things. I think it's a clever ploy to make people rewatch, to look out for things.
Because it is one of those, I remember the first time that I was like, did I just see something?
Yeah.
What was it? Because it's such a split flash that you'll see.
Like one or two frames.
Yeah, and it's so like taking it back and like, no, yeah, I did see something, but it's that thing that is just, it kind of catches you off guard when you're not expecting it. And still now when I watch it, there's stuff and I'm like, I don't remember seeing this before. And obviously I have, because I've seen them so many times.
Yeah.
But there's still stuff that I catch and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah. So I mean, God, I remember the spider walk being like the holy grail of scenes to see.
Yeah.
Like, so many people talked about it, the spider walk.
And they did get it in the BBC documentary. They said they managed to obtain material of it and cobbled it together for the BBC documentary. But up until that point, it had never been seen by anybody.
Even to this day, the full scene isn't actually available, is it?
No, what you see in the film isn't still the full version.
Yeah.
It's like just a snippet sort of it.
Yeah, because it's like a behind-the-scenes shot of the full kind of sequence, and it's never actually made it into the film.
Yeah, because I think as it is now in the film, she comes down the stairs and like she gets to the bottom and opens her mouth and all blood like comes out and drips down her face. But the full version is like she gets down to the bottom, she does that, and then she flips and chases like Sharon and her mum like across the hall and like attacks her mum is the full version. But yeah, that's still never been put in it because I don't think they ever shot it right.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like real raw footage. So
yeah, because I wonder where that scene would eventually go. Like, what would happen? Because I think on the behind the scenes, like her mum grabs her and then screams to call somebody.
Yeah, she's like, call the doctor, Sharon, or something like that, where they're holding her down.
Call the doctor, my daughter's bleeding from the mouth.
Yeah, like, this is completely normal. Gingivitis is real, people.
I mean, yeah, could you imagine that? Her head spun round, call the doctor! Yeah.
It's really odd. But again, if I remember rightly, the woman coming down the stairs isn't Linda Blair. No. It's a stunt double.
Yeah.
Because I remember for the Fear of God documentary, the original one that was on the BBC had Eileen Dietz in it, Mercedes McCambridge, and the British Board film classification guy.
Yeah.
And then in later editions that went on Blu-rays and Laserdisc, they were cut from it.
Oh.
So they only ever appeared in the original BBC version. Because I remember when I finally got the 25th anniversary edition, I got to see the documentary again, and I was like, this was not the documentary I watched on the BBC all those years ago. But yeah, apparently Mercedes McCambridge, when she did it, one of the stipulations was that she would only be in that version of it.
Right.
So for anything that got released, I think now there is a version called like the festival version,
Right.
which is the full original version of that documentary, because it went through a few changes between the guys that made it, had creative differences.
Yeah.
So there was several versions of it that floated around. But if you look it up, I think it is on YouTube, called the festival version.
Okay.
That is the original full version of the documentary.
Because Eileen Dietz played like the stunt of
Linda Blair.
Yeah.
Because she was a few years older. She was in her 20s, I think, 25,
Right.
when they did the film. But she was the same like height and build as Linda Blair, who was, what, 12 or 13, I think, at the time.
I saw her at the HorrorCon last year.
Oh, did you?
I didn't meet her, but I saw her at the HorrorCon. She had a very big line.
Oh, I can imagine. Like, for anyone that knows who she is anyway, for anyone's a fan of the film, she's kind of like, she did a lot of the iconic scenes, like where she hits the doctor. That when you see like the back shot of Reagan as she hits the doctor across the face, that was Eileen Dietz. And the bit where Linda Blair has the crucifix, where Reagan's masturbating with the crucifix, the shots of it going between her legs was Eileen Dietz.
Yes, I think.
So.
But did she get screwed over for it?
Well, her and Mercedes McCambridge both did, because when Mercedes McCambridge did the voice of the demon, so when you hear all like the groans and the cries and the mixing of voice and things like that, that was Mercedes McCambridge that did it. And then when the film got released, neither one of them got credits on the film. They both went to the screenings of it, like sat through the credits, and neither one of them was credited as being contributors to the film.
I wonder why.
I don't know if I don't think I ever found out a reason as to why, but I know the two of them tried to bring a law case against Warner Brothers for being excluded from it.
Rightly so.
I believe now they have been edited. So I think if you watch the credits, I think of the recent film, they are credited.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time they weren't, which is weird, because especially Mercedes McCambridge as the voice of the demon, that voice is so iconic.
Yeah.
That you just think at the time, I remember watching him like, who did this? Like, this voice is so weird.
Yeah.
And so it's very like, it's neither male nor female. It's just very neutral. It's just this creepy voice.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was her that created it. And they did weird things to her, like tying her to a chair and like constricting her neck to create like weird effects. And she was a recovering alcoholic,
right?
Mercedes McCambridge was. And when they were filming, she was like, if I have alcohol, it will do weird things to my vocal cords. But she was a recovering alcoholic, so for the film she started drinking whiskey and stuff again to do this stuff with her voice so that they could get it on film. And I was like, she went through all that and then never got a credit for it. I was like, I understand why she's pissed, because I would be fuming. I would be so angry.
Residuals owing to her, both of them, for that.
I don't know, say, what her pay or anything was for it, but the film wouldn't be anything without.
They probably would have got scale or something, but for back then, which would have been nothing really.
But yeah, it's so odd. But yeah, if you watch the original BBC version, she talks about it and she's in it. And yeah, like she's very pleasant when she's doing it. But I was like, how she does that? Because I would be so pissed.
Yeah, I'd be really annoyed at that. Yeah, definitely.
Pissed off at Warner Brothers. You did shady Warner Brothers.
They did. But then, are you surprised?
No, not at all. Not at all. No company gets as big as they are through being polite and nice.
So I know that not long after it, Warner Brothers were very eager to cash in on a sequel.
Yes.
And William Friedkin and
Peter Blatty.
Thank you. They apparently got together numerous times to try and hash out a script for it, but they said they could never come up with something worthy of a sequel, so they decided to not really do it. But
it's one of those that it doesn't. I've seen the second one. I've never seen the third one.
I watched the third one because that's meant to be like,
because it's William Friedkin that came back and did the third one, so it's the original director.
It's very strange. Like, I don't know. It just didn't feel like an Exorcist film. It just kind of felt like a murder mystery film sort of thing, because it's about a serial killer. But I know that they eventually got somebody on board. I can't remember what the director's name is now for the sequel. And apparently Linda Blair kept saying no, she wasn't going to do it. She wasn't going to do it. And she finally got given a script, and she has said that she was given a script that she deemed to be a good script. So she signed on. And she said that they had so many rewrites on the script that by the time they came to film it, it was nothing like.
Yeah, the original one that it should have started out
Yeah.
as. She said it changed so much and they changed the story that much, but obviously by that point she was kind of locked into
Yeah,
it.
she
So it's
had
not what
to
she
do
can
it.
do.
Yeah, she had to do it. I mean, even now, I think not that long ago I did watch the sequel, and I don't mind it. I think because it was the first one I watched.
Yeah, same thing with me. Or like always holds like a place for me because it was the first version of The Exorcist I
Yeah.
ever saw.
Yeah, and I don't
So-
really hate it that much. I know Ellen Burstyn refused to come back.
Yeah.
And what's the actress name that plays the Doctor? In the second one.
Oh yes, I know who you mean.
Um,
I don't know what her name is though.
just call it out when you've got it, because I know apparently they were going to cast her as her mum because they looked so similar.
She really does, because I remember when I first saw the second one, I thought it was her
Yeah,
mum because
yeah.
she really looks like her. Louise Fletcher.
Yeah. So we're going to get her for a mum, but then apparently in rewrites they couldn't get the right male doctor, so they rewrote the part for her to be a female doctor instead.
Yeah.
And again, I don't particularly think it's a bad film.
No,
I think I've seen a hell of a lot worse
Yes.
films than The Exorcist too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they got enough people back. Sharon came back. Kitty Wynn, that played Sharon from the original. Obviously got Linda Blair. Max von Sydow came back as well. So James Earl Jones turns up, which is a bit odd, but maybe he was
Is he
riding
not the voodoo doctor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe he was riding the Star Wars train at the time, so it was like
true.
attach his name to it, and it might give it credit or
That
something.
is very true.
But I didn't hate it, and it's a film I've seen many times. But I've never seen the third one, and then they did The Beginning, and then
But isn't Beginning and Dominion the same film though?
Yeah.
Depending on the cut that you saw.
yeah, there was a whole thing about like Warner Brothers commissioned them, and then might have been Beginning got almost through to completion and they didn't like it, so it kind of got scrapped, and then they went through into Dominion, but then did finish them both off and release them. But I've never seen either of that.
I haven't.
And I still haven't seen the new one, Believer.
Yeah. Well,
I had issue with it from the trailer, and I'm one of those people that I'm like, if you want to remake a film or something like that, I'm all on board for it. Ghostbusters, Answer the Call with Paul Feig, I will stand on that hill. I love that film.
I like it.
And all those whinies that complained about it can do one, because that should have got a sequel.
It should have done. And in all fairness, if you don't like a remake, you still got the original.
Yeah, it doesn't take anything away from the original.
You can't watch the original and go, the other one's ruined it for. No. The originalist will always be there for you.
Yeah. But I saw The Exorcist Believer and I was so excited for it. But then obviously I heard Linda Blair wasn't coming back for us. So I was like, can you really have an Exorcist film without Linda Blair? I was like, it's a bit.
Especially being that it was David Gordon Green that was doing it, and he obviously brought Jamie Lee Curtis back for Halloween.
Yeah.
Which, you kind of going, oh, is he going to pull the same stunt with Linda Blair?
Yeah. And they had obviously Ellen Burstyn that came back, but then there was a whole thing that she'd written a book about what happened to Reagan, and that was how the people found it. And I was like, she wouldn't have done that. Chris McNeil from the first one, the whole point was that she was very private about it, didn't want people knowing, sort of thing. So I'm like, for her to go out and write a book, I'm like, that didn't fit with the character that existed in the first film. I'm like, you've changed that just to fit your script, but you're not being true to the original material. And I say, I haven't seen it, so I may be talking completely out of turn, and one day I will watch it. But it's just one of the things I'm like, I'm not in a rush to see it. If I watch it, I watch it.
I think, again, you can't really get the same feel as the original, because, I mean, again, I've not seen it, but I mean, there must be at least like nearly an hour of like the medical drama side of it to build up that rapport. I mean, that's what makes the original so good.
It takes so long to get to the point where she's full blown tied to the bed, like bitch is gone, like she's all, cuts and bruises and in desperate need of some moisturizer because the lips are so cracked.
Some lip balm.
Okay, she needs some Vaseline. There you go, on there. But on the new one I heard it's like 15 minutes and then like full blown possession has started. I'm like, to me, that doesn't seem like enough time for you to build up to care about these people and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Whereas I love that about the original, that it takes so long to get to the point where all hell breaks loose, that you feel like you know these characters, you feel for them, what they're going through, you've seen the journey of the mum and everything. So it just, to me, it feels like it adds more to it.
Yeah, and I feel like as well that a lot of possession films, I don't particularly like them that much, is because they seem to go on like a colour by numbers tropes of, if you're possessed, you've got to have a foul mouth, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. It works in the original, but then, I don't know, because they're the devil or whatever, they have to have a foul mouth and they have to do vulgar things, and I'm not a prude. Like,
it just seemed very much that The Exorcist has kind of set a precedence of, like, you know, like you said, colour by numbers, this must happen, then this must happen, and then this must happen before you can get to, you know, the end of the film.
Yeah.
Nobody really seems to have kind of broken away from that.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, I'm not expecting a possession film where they're like, oh, fiddly dee, you know.
Even the Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe that came out recently wasn't a horrible film, but you could draw lines between The Exorcist and that, where you could just see, well, you've taken this and basically from The Exorcist and you're just transplanting it into this other film, and I could draw massive parallels between the two.
The only one that stands out, Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Because
I will give that.
Yes, there are characteristics of the character with non-possession films, but it's done so well.
Yeah, it is. That is actually a really good film. So yeah,
so good. Not what I was expecting when I saw the trailer and then watched the film.
Yeah,
but it's such a good film.
But that really got hammered by people. The Exorcism of Emily Rose,
because it wasn't The Exorcist. I think it was advertised as going to be an Exorcist type film.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. It was more of a courtroom drama.
There was one they did of. I think it was a TV film, and it was about the original story of that inspired The Exorcist, about the boy.
Right.
1949, I think it was, in America, that inspired William Peter Blatty to write the book. There was a TV version done, movie. I think it's called Possessed. I was just trying to find it, but I think it's called that.
Ooh, that sounds familiar.
It's actually not bad as like a TV film. It's very low budget. But it does a really good job of kind of starting out with, you know, this little boy, everything's normal, and then weird things are happening, and then you kind of got the section where they're trying to figure out what's wrong with him, and he goes to psychiatrists and things like that, and it has that slow burn and before all hell like erupts in it. And I remember watching it many years ago, so I may not be remembering it exactly as though it was back then, but I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, actually, this is quite a good film for saying it's kind of like a made-for-TV one based around the true story. So yeah, if anybody wants, you know, something to sit and watch, then I'm sure it's called Possessed or Possession or something like that.
That does kind of ring a bell.
I have a DVD of it from when I went to America, because that was where I found it. It was in some DVD shop I was into when I was over there. So it was a Region 1 DVD, and I remember seeing it was like, you know, the true story of The Exorcist, and it wasn't expensive. So I bought it thinking, you know, it's my American trip. I've got some DVDs.
You came back with so many DVDs.
Spent so much money.
And some of them, half of them, you'd never seen, like House of 1,000 Corpses. And you're like, it was the thing to watch at the time. So you're like, I'll grab that.
I hate that film. It's disgusting. It's gross. And I've never watched it again.
The sequel is so much better, The Devil's Rejects.
No.
Not getting sidelined, but the sequel is very, very good. I don't particularly like the first one, but
I just remember, like, House of 1,000 Corpses, it was everywhere. It was Rob Zombie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was this big hyped film at the time when I went there, and it was like, everyone's like, you got to see this film, it's amazing. So I bought it, came back home, and I remember watching it while trying to eat tea at the time, which was the biggest mistake, and I just found it disgusting.
Yeah.
It was so horrible, because I bought that, and I also bought Cabin Fever.
Oh, yeah.
Which again is another disgusting film.
I really don't like Cabin Fever.
This Ali Roth, isn't it? I mean, Hostel 1, for all its thing when it came out, it was like the first, it was like torture porn, isn't it, as I call it?
Hostel 2 is the one to watch.
It's so good.
I love
it. The first one is
Final Girls. Yeah. That's the thing, because the first one is kind of a final boy, which is what I was talking about in the last podcast.
Yeah.
But I think because it's such a strong female badass lead,
Yeah.
that it just works so much better.
She is great, because I remember going, because I didn't watch the second one for so long, because the first one I was like, this is disgusting, it's literally just torture porn. And I think until the day I will die, I will have cringes of when in the first one he cuts his Achilles heel in the chair and the guy goes to stand up and you just see his foot go, and that will haunt me until the day I die. It was horrible.
I remember, sorry, getting sidetracked here, when I was staying in Mablethorpe by myself in mum and dad's chalet.
Yeah.
That makes it sound really posh, we're not. It was
It's
like
really not. It's literally like a cheap wooden shed on like a park.
yeah. And I was by myself. I've been there all week by myself, and the local cinema was showing Hostel 2. And I thought, do you know what? I'm bored. I'm going to go and watch it. Finished about midnight, come out of the cinema, pitch black by myself. Like, obviously, I'm not scared of horror films, but then I had like this unnerving feeling of walking back down this main road by myself to get back to the chalet park.
Like, oh my God, someone's going to grab me and sell my organs.
Yeah. Just being really creeped out after watching that.
But you got me to watch it, because I refused to watch Hostel 2, because I'm like, the first one is disgusting, and you were like, no, come and watch it, and you were watching it in your bedroom. So I came in and sat on the bed when you were watching it, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it for a minute, and then we ended up watching the whole thing together, and then at the end I was like, that was really good.
That happened quite a few times growing up, to be fair, and one that always comes to mind was Linda Blair's Hell Night.
That is so good.
Yeah, because you picked it up from Blockbusters as an impulse buy. We didn't watch the trailer. You're like, let's just watch
Which was
this.
good, because if you ever watch the trailer for Hell Night, it ruins the whole film, because you see in the trailer who's going to die.
Yeah.
So,
and the killer reveal and everything.
Yeah, it's the worst trailer ever.
Yeah. And I remember we watched and went, that's really good. And watched the trailer and was like, thank God we didn't watch that first.
It was on the DVD as like a special feature with the trailer. So watch the film and then watch the special feature.
Yeah.
So we're like, thank God we didn't watch that first, because it would have ruined the whole film for us.
Yeah, yeah.
So completely got sidetracked there.
Yeah, I was just going to say something that made me laugh when I was reading earlier that I'd read before, was when they were releasing The Exorcist 2 at the cinema, apparently some of the executives were in a limo, they got picked up, they got some food, and they went into a screening of it, and apparently within 15 minutes, someone stood up and was like, the bastards that made this film are sitting in here with us right now.
Oh, God.
A load of people got up, found them. They then ran out of the cinema, realised they didn't have any cars waiting for them, had to leg it down the street while these people from the cinema were chasing them.
Oh my
because
God.
they were that upset about it. I mean, come on, get a life, people.
Wow.
To physically get up and abuse someone for making a film that you didn't like.
I said, what are you going to do if you get hold of them?
I know.
Like, what are you going
Giving them a good stern talking
I'm
to.
going to wag my finger in your face and be like, naughty, you shouldn't have done it.
I mean,
But
these people that are so volatile towards a film that they don't like, it's like, okay, you didn't like it, move on.
Move on with your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch it again.
They're just some of these people that just want to scream into the void of something they hate. It's like,
Yeah, I understand being frustrated, because
Yeah.
I've been like that with many films.
Yeah.
Godfather and Godfather 2.
Never watched them.
Don't.
did Nick make you watch
Yes,
these?
he did. He did. I watched
Naughty
it and I was just like, because you know, the Godfather always races for like the top film of all
Yeah.
time. It's always Shawshank Redemption, or I think it's The Godfather Part 1 or Part 2, whichever it is. They're always normally like neck and neck of like the number one greatest film that's ever been made in the entire history of the world,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. So we did watch them, and we watched 1 and 2. They are so boring. They are awful
I'm
films.
surprised Nick likes this type of film.
Oh, he
It's
loves
just
gangster films. Yeah,
I
he
don't-
made me watch Goodfellas, which has got Diane Keaton in it. It was the only redeeming factor. I didn't like it either. So yeah, like, don't waste your time on it. But yeah, I'm like, I get being sat there at the end frustrated. Like, you've just wasted 3 hours of my life. Like, oh God, Lorelai Gilmore, when Rory's like, she was screaming at the TV, I want those hours of my life back. That literally was me when I finished watching them. I'm like, can I please have a refund of those 3 hours of my life that you just wasted?
What
Because
two films have we shit on now that's going to get people yelling at us? These iconic
The
films.
Shining, The Godfather, and Goodfellas. No.
I'm like, no, I am done with you guys.
Yeah, people are clicking off at this point because I'm like, these two clearly know nothing. He supported Ghostbusters Answer the Call, but said Godfather was terrible.
I know.
No, I will stand by that.
I know.
But yeah, terrible. But yeah, these people just get very invested and they're like, get over yourself. There's worse things going on in the world.
Yeah, seriously, people do get so protective over certain films like The Godfather and The Shining, things like that. They will protect those with their life. It's
Yeah.
like, You know,
I will defend this with my honour.
yeah, they probably throw their own mother under the bus to protect those films. Like, sorry, Mum, bye. This
Yeah.
film means way more to me than you.
Odd people.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we are now coming up to our hour mark.
Oh my
now.
God, we are.
Can you believe it? Hour goes by so quick. It's
It
actually
really
crazy to believe.
It really does.
So-
If anyone has lasted this long, well done.
Yeah, thank you. We do appreciate you listening to us rambling on about.
Could you tell us apart?
Yeah, sound off in the comments to tell us if you could tell who was who. People are like, you sound very different what you're talking about.
One thing I did want to mention with it, that The Exorcist, that I think the Scary Movie 2 has ruined The Exorcist for people.
Yes.
Because
Bad girl!
yeah, Mom, what are you doing in there? The same thing the way Scary Movie 1 ruined Blair Witch for people,
yeah.
because Nick had never seen the Blair Witch, whereas I remember it coming out because I was of the age when it was released.
Don't go into too much detail because there is going to be a dedicated podcast for the Blair Witch.
I will stop there. But yeah, Nick watched the Blair Witch, and all he kept thinking about the whole time was Scary Movie.
Yeah.
And the bit where in Scary Movie where she's running through the woods or something, and she's like, can you move your fat ass? When she's running through the woods in Blair Witch, Nick just kept saying like, can you move your fat ass? And yeah, and Scary Movie 2 as well is just ruined The Exorcist, because when
I don't know what to do. She won't let me touch her.
yes,
Sometimes I have to give them candy.
it's so bad. Like, it's funny because we're laughing, and Scary Movie 2 I think is funny before they went awful. But yeah, I think for anyone that's of that generation that's not seen The Exorcist but seen Scary Movie, now watching The Exorcist, it won't be the same because you will literally think Scary Movie watching it.
Yeah.
Massive sidetrack there. But I did have a point that, like, Scary Movie, if anyone's not seen The Exorcist and after this you're going to go and watch it, just try and forget Scary Movie because it will just ruin it for you.
In all fairness, I think I've done a hell of a lot better this week, staying on topic. I mean, pretty much this whole episode has been dedicated to a single topic.
That's because I'm here and I keep things on track. I'm sensible.
Kind of. So I think after that little sidetrack, we shall wrap up this episode of Creepy Corner and say a big thank you to my older brother Craig for taking part in this, who shall be back whether he likes it or not, because we have a mutual love for the same film, so we have a lot to discuss.
Yes, we do like a lot of the same things. It is true. I did introduce you to this industry.
It is true.
I am responsible for traumatizing you. And before we disappear, you mentioned something earlier about things that will scare you and always stay with you. Is there something from a film that till this day you've just find incredibly creepy? Because I'll go first, because mine, which I'm sure you're going to know, it's that woman from Pet Sematary, the sister.
Yeah.
That terrified me as a kid, and absolutely, like, I can't even describe how much that scared me, the sister with the twisted back, and I can't think what the name is in the film.
Slang. That's sister with the twisted back.
Sister with the twisted back. I can't think what her name is now.
No, I can't.
And
That's
it's going to really bug me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. 'Cause I remember Pet Sematary. That was one that I wasn't particularly allowed to watch. You wouldn't let me watch it.
No, because it terrified me. I actually had sleepless nights over that film.
The only horror film when I was younger that if I watched it, it gave me nightmares was Tim Curry as Pennywise.
Yeah, see, I think he's responsible for a whole group of people being scared of clowns.
Yeah.
Like, the clown industry, I think, owes a lot to him for people being terrified of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wondered if there was one, because I said that one, the sister with me from Pet Sematary, will always stay with me. And even now when I watch that film, I find her really scary.
Like, I can hear her name in my head, but it won't.
Zelda.
Thank you.
Zelda. And it's just, the way she, like, near the end of the film when the main woman comes in and she's like, we're gonna twist your back too, and she's got like all the
There's a man that played
yes
that.
And yeah, because then there's a documentary that they did of Pet Sematary and he's in it and basically says like, I didn't realize I was going to be responsible for so many sleepless nights for people. I remember watching it and I was like, yes, you did that to me. I was like, I had nightmares about that character for years, and still to say, watching the film now, I like that film, but even watching it now, when I see her, that fear just comes back to me. It was terrifying.
I think the only thing that used to really get me as well was in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, where her arms come off. That was
Oh yes.
that. I think that was the only thing
Which turns into the beetle.
yeah, that used to scare me as a kid. But
There were so many good final girls in those history series.
Yeah.
That's one we'll have to talk about.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to talk about in that. Like
Yeah.
Alice. So Heather Langenkamp. Sorry, I'm digressing. We will talk about that one time. We will have a Nightmare on Elm Street podcast.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to fill on that, so that might be a bit longer than an hour. In all fairness, I mean, we've tried to wrap up now twice, and we're still going.
I'm sorry, that's my fault. But yes, come on, last one. What comes to mind? Scariest thing you saw in a film that still stays with you?
Oh gosh, I genuinely, I can't think off the top of my head if.
Because he thinks he's tough, everybody.
No,
That's
really
it.
not. Like,
I'm hard, I'm solid, I am. Nothing scares me.
no, I genuinely, like, off the top of my head, I can't think. So I'm trying to rack through my head, like, films that I would have watched as a kid and as a teenager. I mean, like I said, Pennywise was a big thing, but nothing that really bothers me now, I don't think. Like, going back, like, with you said it still creeps you out watching Pet Sematary.
Yeah, Zelda she lives rent-free in my mind, that character does. And damn you, Stephen King.
Yeah, I just genuinely, like, it'll come to me later. I'll be like, no, yeah, definitely that.
If he remembers, he will pop it in the comments.
I will. Or it'll just be randomly, like, on screen right now above, just showing off what scared me. I just genuinely, I can't think off the top of my head what it was.
Okay,
Really can't.
just wonder. Anyway, I'll now let you wrap up.
Okay, so, well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this special episode with my older brother, who has a lot to answer for many sleepless nights and my film career, to be honest. So, until next time, everybody, stay creepy. Bye.